Okay, good morning, everybody, and thank you for coming to this decision session for the Executive Member for Economy and Transport. I'm Councillor Pete Gilbane. I am that Executive Member, so I will be chairing today's meeting and making decisions on the items in front of us. Just following the agenda, declarations of interest, there's only me here as a councillor, and I have no interest to declare about the business that we're going to discuss today. I have read the minutes of the previous decision session, and I am happy to approve those minutes, and that moves us directly on to public participation. We have 5 members of the public participating in today's meeting. If you've not done this before, then you have 3 minutes to make your points, and I'll give you a 30-second warning as we come towards the end of those 3 minutes, unless you specifically ask me not to, in which case I'll just tell you when your 3 minutes are up. Okay, so let's move on to the first public speaker, and that is Councillor Waters. And Councillor Waters is speaking on general highways matters and item 4, the cashless parking review. Councillor Waters, I think you're quite familiar with this process. I'll give you 3 minutes, and that starts now with a warning. Do you want a 30-second warning, Mark? Or?
No.
All right,
thanks.
3 minutes. Your time is starting now.
Thank you, Chair. I had intended restricting myself to agenda item 4, but something within the general remit that cropped up last week that I need to raise later. So, onto the cashless parking review. 2 very important principles here. On a purely local level, as I've said before, regarding York Council consultation, it becomes presentation and not meaningful consultation when results do not follow the council's preferred outcome and respondents are ignored. In this case, 73.58% of respondents don't support the move to cashless payments only. What was the point of them contributing to the survey? The second principle is of national importance, and that is for councils to keep cash payment options across all services. Often for the poorest in society and the elderly, chipping away at the ability of people to use cash will, of course, lead to further disenfranchising of people and inevitably lead to more bank closures and forcing people down the dubious digital payment routes. Last week, despite months of me highlighting dangerous potholes across the ward that remain for weeks and in some cases months without being attended to, and in many cases, if they are attended to, it's in an unacceptable manner that sees the repair last but days, and in some cases, barely hours. Despite me highlighting this, the best York Council could find to do with taxpayers' money was to daub pointless road markings in a conservation area, Osberwick Village, ironically just around the corner from York's worst repaired pothole, as highlighted in the local media. The director tried to put me off with the Highway Infrastructure Asset Management Plan and the inspection manual for inspectors. I'm sorry that won't wash with me. The Asset Management Plan was written after and makes specific reference to the 2017 Highways Communication Strategy. Where is the communication with ward members, parish councils, the member briefings, the ward and team meetings that strategy refers to? Perhaps if communication was forthcoming and highway staff took on board ward priorities and concerns of members, we wouldn't be in a situation when highway repair methods and priorities are held to rightful ridicule. To illustrate matters, I'd forwarded a photo to the executive member of Eastfield Lane, Dunniton last night, with a pothole looking like the famous jumping scene from Vicar of Dibley. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Waters. Points have been noted, and I will address when we come to the main decision sessions. Thank you. Okay, next we have joining us remotely, we have Flick Williams. Can you hear me, Flick?
Yes, good morning.
Thank you, Flick. And I think you're used to this process by now, and am I right in thinking you don't want a reminder with 30 seconds to go?
Yes, correct. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Flick, and your time starts now.
I did not respond to this consultation as I don't have a car or access to one, but having read the comments of those who did, all 22 pages of them, all the concerns I raised at your decision session that launched the consultation are replicated there. We see concerns about digital exclusion, the complication of downloading multiple apps for those who have smartphones, the mistrust of sharing bank details with third-party apps, the surcharges for using pay by phone that are not transparent, and so on. My concerns around this data being used to surveil citizens have only grown in recent months. Not only is this a concern for those in coercive relationships, but since the consultation launched, the government has now passed legislation to allow Department of Work and Pensions to monitor the bank accounts of benefit claimants, and that includes those receiving state pension. We are told this is to ensure no claimant is exceeding the savings limit and to monitor fraud, but colour me cynical, I won't be in the least surprised when this data on movement starts showing up in benefit assessments. We are living in an increasingly low trust society, and the comments reflect that. What I don't see anywhere is any contingency assessment of what happens for an entirely digital system if everything goes down, and the potential loss for this essential revenue for our financially challenged council. We are now being warned about cyber attacks, grid down and other black swan events. I was in Leeds last year when electronic systems went down for several hours and stores were only accepting cash. Reverting to using cash is an accelerating trend as people become fearful of that facility being removed altogether. The UK government consulted on moving to central bank digital currency in February 2023. And then we have pay on exit, which is a horse of a whole other colour. The rusting barrier housings at Castle Car Park are testimony to that being a failed experiment. Same blue badge holders are unaffected by the shift to cashless, as we do not have to pay for car parking charges. That changes entirely with a shift to pay on exit scheme, not forgetting those with hand or arm impairments, which on their own would not qualify someone for a blue badge. We must design infrastructure that works for everyone, or we build in more inaccessibility and discrimination. I urge you to reject both a move to cashless car parking and to any pay on exit schemes. Lastly, with regard to your other agenda item on Front Street Acomb, I have a message for the What a Load of Bollards campaign. I'd say don't put away your placards just yet. Take a look at the forest of bollards planned for the station gateway public realm that block pedestrian crossings and will interfere with boarding and alighting buses. A load of bollards indeed. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, Flick Williams, and as ever, perfect timing. Thank you for that. Okay, we now have Zaina Chapman, who is again joining us remotely, talking on the Front Street item today. Zaina, can you hear me?
I can you hear me okay?
Hi, yeah, hi Zaina, and thank you. I know you've come in as a substitute at fairly late notice, so thank you for doing that. Do you want a 30-second warning before your time's up, or do you want me to just tell you when the 3 minutes are done?
I think I should be fine, but thank you.
Okay, thank you. Your time starts now.
We had such high hopes when the remaining £500,000 of Shared Prosperity Fund was granted to tackle Fortress Front Street, but these diminished every time we meet with council officers to hear about latest proposals. There seems to be very little analysis about the issues on Front Street that the council are seeking to address, and no clear vision that is guiding the scheme. Although we welcome an open and public engagement to the plans, community consultation has already happened, designs have been developed. Why is further money and time being spent to repeat the process? The Phase 2 costed proposal being presented reads like a shopping list of items from a largely highways inventory, includes jargon phrases like place marking and suggestions for fragmented interventions over a large geographic area. The approach being taken risks repeating the mistakes of Phase 1, a failure for which there seems to have been no accountability for or lessons learned. It's hard to see at this point how Phase 2 will deliver a meaningful and impactful change to the Acomb area, with a suggested £295,000 of the costed proposal to be spent on highways-related elements, indicating that the council's plans are really for a glorified highways scheme rather than true regeneration. We beg you to be bold, to be creative, to have higher aspirations for our community than this. It requires a fresh approach where designers are appointed to deliver a scheme against a budget, where plans are developed to do the most to regenerate the high street. This option has not been included in your paper. Officers frequently inform us that budgets are limited and timings are tight. However, we are concerned that the council are already slipping items into scope that could and should be met by other budgets. For example, pothole repairs mentioned in this paper. The requirement for this scheme to be delivered by spring 2025 should mean that there is adequate time. But if the council continue to waste it, for example, it took over 12 weeks to produce an incoherent list of interventions. If this continues, then the potential of this project is severely limited. Community confidence in the council is low, and we really need to see a very different approach to phase 2 to build that back. This is not it. CYC have been working on a regeneration scheme for Front Street for over 4 years. And if they were going to come up with one, they'd have done it by now. It's time to hand it over to the experts in this area, follow the lead from areas such as Leeds, Stockton-on-Tees, Hackney, just to name a few, and work with urban designers who can really deliver meaningful change in Acomb. Thank you.
Thank you, Zaina. Those points will be addressed when we come to that part of today's agenda. And thank you for your contribution. Next, we have Heather Marsden. Do we have Heather Marsden in the room? And Heather, I believe you're speaking on item 5. Yeah. Have you done this before? Yeah. Heather, okay. Well, just relax. You know, you've got 3 minutes. Do you want a 30-second warning, or do you just want me to tell you when your 3 minutes are
just tell me. I don't think
right,
I'll run over.
Okay. Thank you, Heather. Your time starts now.
Okay, so I'm here on behalf of the Greater Acomb Community Forum, which is the new name for the Acomb and Westfield Neighbourhood Plan Forum that's referred to in the section on Acomb Front Street in the agenda documents. And we were keen to have a representative at this meeting, in addition to hearing from the Waterloo to Bollards group, because we wanted the council to be aware that Acomb Front Street is being discussed in a variety of venues, and not just by the specific campaign group, but we do support the views of the specific campaign group as well. But yes, we wanted you to be aware that other people are talking about this and taking an interest, and to be honest, sharing the view just expressed that they're, you know, the community is losing confidence in what's going ahead. In relation to the plans for Acomb Front Street, the forum supports the vision that came out of the original consultation, so strongly want to proceed with that kind of vision. At public meetings of our forum over the past year, time and again, people say they want more trees and planting in Acomb, and this was also a key priority that came out of the consultation that isn't featuring very highly in as far as we can tell, in the plans that are being put forward. In relation to the specific agenda item, the community forum view is that we definitely support public engagement on subsequent phases, but it has to be thorough and wide-reaching. And we're aware that there was an engagement with regard to the bollards that apparently took place last year, but it seems like hardly anyone knew about it at the time. So we want any further engagement and its outcomes to be something that people have much more opportunity to know about and get involved in. And on this theme of public engagement, our forum is actually working with researchers at the University of York, Professor Kate Giles and Dr. Jenny England, who are here right now, and their partners in the York Civic Trust, on a project that explores how best practice in community consultation and co-design can be applied in Acomb. And this project includes reflecting on what did and didn't work in the previous consultation. And it would be great to bring our project partners' expertise and insights into the process, with the idea being that Acomb Front Street could turn into a really good example of the new council listening to its citizens and finding solutions together. And it's clear from the conversations that our group has had that there is a lot of enthusiasm and willingness from Acomb residents to contribute to and care for our environment. So maybe the council could look at more creative and imaginative solutions. Indeed, some solutions that other urban planners have found working with communities, harnessing the residents' enthusiasm and still meeting the requirements of highways and engineers. And we want the residents' input to be incorporated all the way through the process, so not input and then hand it off to highways and engineering, and residents end up feeling like the input was actually disregarded, but involve residents all the way through. Thank you.
Perfect timing. Okay, thank you very much. Those points will be addressed when we come to the decision in item 5. And last but by no means least, we have Councillor Waller, who is talking today on item 5, Acomb Front Street. And Councillor Waller, as somebody that was quite recently in this chair, I'm sure you'll fully understand how the process works. Would you like a 30-second reminder, or do you want to go for the full 3 minutes?
I'll have the 3 minutes. Thank you,
Okay,
Chair.
the time starts now.
All right, thank you, Chair. Having a successful and flourishing shopping area in Front Street is important to businesses and the local community who want to take pride in the area. It's encouraging to see more businesses opening up locally, which shows a willingness and enthusiasm to invest in the area. And I've worked with many businesses in Front Street and spoken many times with the residents whilst shopping, and therefore ensuring the next phase helps to deliver those aspects which have been looked forward to is important. It's not always easy to get this council to think outside the city walls at times, especially when it comes to retail. But there are many neighbourhood shopping areas across the city who have achieved greater appreciation since lockdown, and there's been a rediscovery of local opportunities. The primary phase for Front Street had been to respond to public concerns about the safety of the footpath, whether public highway or private land that is used as though it was. And there still needs to be an appreciation of the potential for adoption of some of the land that is privately owned to provide more flexibility for land use, which would provide more attractions to draw more people in. Having the second phase of the investment take place is a step forward, as this has always been in the pipeline. Tackling long-term service shortfalls such as the public loos, benches to take a break on with connections to the full extent of the High Street from the Regent Building to York Road, Front Street, Explore Library and Acomb Green. Linking the investment to Acomb Explore Library, which I hope will still happen despite recent difficulties, would provide a stimulus in the historic part of Front Street, and there's been significant investment recently in some of the buildings nearby. There are linkages which were meant to be tackled in the second phase. The crossing point in front of Morrison's car park is in need of attention to make it more pedestrian friendly. And people who rely on mobility scooters and wheelchairs have requested attention here and on the difficult terrain of the footpath between Morrison's and Gale Lane on both sides of Front Street. There are issues with the road surface, which has been mentioned in the report, and these require linkages with other budgets within the council, and there are many other linkages for the long term, which I hope will be developed. There does need to be care in the report, talking about the gateway in terms of an entrance, a welcome to the shopping area, and the existing gateway centre, which kindly hosted and paid for the large Christmas tree. There will be further phases after this one, inevitably, as resources will be needed going forward. And there needs to be the flexibility to adapt the new services and use of buildings in the area. The increasing range of health services at Acomb Gables is an illustration of this, but that is not a location that's easy to reach due to the gradients in the locality. There is great entrepreneurial spirit in the local community, and I hope there will be a clear link with the Westfield project in terms of work with all schools, broadening horizons and a broader range of career opportunities as a consequence of this investment. I look forward to seeing how residents and businesses will have their say and comment on the plans in the future. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Councillor Waller. The only participant who slightly overrun, but it was only slightly, and it's always good to hear from you. Okay, thank you everybody for those contributions. As I say, we will refer to them as we come to each individual agenda item. The first of which is agenda item number 4, which is the cashless parking review. And I think, James Gilchrist, are you going to take us through the report?
Yeah, so as ever, when I read a report, I spot an error in my report. So at para 10, it should say 3 items, not 5 items. So apologies for that typo. This report goes back to the 2022 budget, where a decision was made to remove cash from car parks. The contract is currently valued at around 60,000 per annum. So that's the cost to send a contractor out to collect the cash from all machines in the city. You made a decision in July this year to undertake a consultation to understand the impacts of this before any decisions were made to move to cashless any further. When we say cashless, that does mean no coins. At the moment, you can't use notes anywhere in the parking estate. You can use coins, so that would be removing that. We also offer the pay by phone service, which is primarily an app, but you can just use an old-fashioned telephone and dial a number and talk to an automated service there. And in the car parks, we've enabled contactless payments. Just in terms of background, Marygate's already a cashless car park and has pay on exit now with blue badge parking on the other side of the barriers. Within this report, there's no proposal to go to more pay on exit. Just to be clear, that's not part of the decision making. As has been identified through some of the public speakers, from the consultation, a proportion of the community really value the ability to pay using cash. So the first recommendation is you note the consultation responses from the public. Recognising those consultation responses, the recommendation is to retain cash payment at Bootham Row and Castle car parks, so that those two car parks will remain as car parks you can pay using cash. We've chosen these two car parks because they're the two gold standard car parks that have been identified as part of the access review. Then what is recommended is that, as per the decision made by full council on the budget, is to remove cash payment from the pay on street bays. Finally, I think just to add, obviously the future of Castle Car Park will be the subject to further reports and business cases, and I need to consider the impact of if we move our gold standard car park where we move cash to as part of that decision making. I've got Graham with me who can answer any specific questions, but I think that probably covers the report or anything I've missed.
I guess just a bit of context again around the consultation. So we have 793 respondents, which is a good response rate. However, we get circa 1.5 million transactions per year. And in question 5 of the consultation, the majority of those people were paying cash. So again, there's part of the assumptions here that given that the majority of our cash income now is down to 10% only and falling. In question 5 of the consultation, it was saying that most of the respondents were cash users. There were some that were debit card users as well. So I think given those facts and given us the budget decision, Councillor Kilbane, that we are where we are with it, but with the savings we've had, the cost of the reduction of cash from 90,000 down to 60,000, we think we can actually still cover the costs for cash collection in those two car parks only. That, as well as the addition that we're also out of contracts as well with our supplier. We'll have to go to procurement at some point, which will be a business as usual side of things. But the cost of replacing all the old machines, which are the majority of machines on the streets, just would simply be unaffordable. So I'm afraid it is a rock and hard place. But with the consultation, that has influenced the decisions and the recommendations to you today. Hence the two car parks put forward.
Okay, thank you, Graham, and thank you, James. And thanks for the report and for the consultation, which was very thorough. So just to be clear, there was a budget decision made by the old Liberal Democrat administration to go cashless in all of our car parks. When we came into administration in May, we suspected that there might be some access inequalities issues around that decision. So we went out to consultation. And 753 doesn't sound like a lot, but it is quite a lot for this sort of type of consultation in terms of the results that we get. And there was a very clear steer from that consultation that people wanted to retain the ability to pay by cash for a whole host of reasons that have been referred to by the officers and also by the public speakers. So I understand where Councillor Waters left us. I understand where Councillor Waters' scepticism about surveys comes from, because it's something that I hear myself when I'm talking to residents. However, it's very clear in this decision that we undertook a survey. People told us that we needed to retain cash payment for parking for a whole host of really good reasons. And we acted on that. Now, that meant that we weren't going to make the savings that we needed to make in order to balance the books as part of the budget. So the challenge that I set officers was to retain the option to pay cash, but also to make those savings, because we need to make the savings. And that's the harsh reality of local authority finances at the moment. So fair play to the officers. They rose to the challenge and they have managed to do both. So we can retain cash payments in 2 of our car parks so that option is there. we are not going to have any cash payments on street. As you've heard, the machines are very old. When the 3G network is finally turned off, they won't function. We need to replace them. That comes at enormous expense, and it just doesn't add up to be replacing them with cash machines. So what's important, I think, is when we move to on-street payment only by phone or by card, that we have a sign there that tells people where the nearest cash payment car parks are, so that they know that there is an alternative place that they can go to, so that they can keep that option open. So what I would like to say in terms of this decision and the recommendations which I am going to approve is that the decision was made to go cashless. We consulted, people told us they needed to keep a cash payment, and we changed the decision. So we consulted, we listened, and we changed our decision based upon that. Okay, so I just want to say that very loud and clear, because there is a great deal of skepticism out there about council consultations. Well, actually, they do have an impact, and they do shape the way that this administration moves forward. And of course, we're trying to balance budgets versus everything else. So hopefully we will address some of the issues that have been raised by the public speakers. In answer to Councillor Waters, if you can hear me out there somewhere, in answer to his question, what was the point of the survey? Well, the point of the survey was it changed the decision. Hopefully we will have addressed some of the concerns raised by Flick Williams. There's not a lot I can do about the government monitoring people's bank accounts, I'm afraid. You know, I mean, a Labour administration might take a different angle if it gets in, but, you know, I don't know. Not a lot I can do from that here. I think we're hearing loud and clear that blue badge parking needs to be on the other side of any pay-as-you-leave barriers. So we need to factor that in. It already is at Marygate, isn't it? But we need to factor that in so that people don't get stuck behind the barrier. And yes, Front Street is another issue that we are on with. So I think that pretty much sums up what I wanted to say on the issue. So I'm happy to approve the recommendations on page 9, all 3 of them, James, under paragraph 10. So I note the consultation. We are going to remove cash payments on street, so that'll be by phone. And also retain cash payments into car parks. We are going to repurpose Castle Car Park. That is still part of the plan. So what we need to do is make sure that when that happens, that there is another alternative car park where you can pay cash in, and we'll factor that into what's happening to the machines in those car parks. Yes, so happy to approve those officer recommendations. I just want to address the point also, there's no place on the agenda to do this. So Councillor Waters under general business raised the issue of potholes and pothole repairs and highways communication strategy. I'll take those points totally on board. And yeah, we do need to look at how we're doing that communication with ward councillors, etc., in terms of addressing the potholes in their wards. But you know, some weeks we are getting 400 potholes reported to us. If we were to fix all of York's roads to the standard that residents quite rightly expect them to be, that would cost us £190 million. Now, at the moment, our entire revenue budget for absolutely everything we do is £145 million. So even if we did nothing else but fix the roads and just left all the old people and young people who need our care to look after themselves, if we did nothing else and just fix the roads, we still wouldn't have enough money in the budget to do it in a year. So, you know, I think we've been very straight with people that because local authorities have been starved of funds for the last 14 years, all local authorities, and you'll notice this wherever you drive across the country, all local authorities are managing the slow decline of their road networks. And until that changes, by actually getting proper funding for adult social care and children's care, which is the thing that we can't afford to do because we're not properly funded for it, until that changes, then the money is going to be going elsewhere to prop up, you know, the people or to support the people in the city who need it desperately. So it's not a position we want to be in. it is a position that needs to change. So the way that we manage potholes is we have to ration which ones we do, and we have to respond according to the criteria that we set for the ones that we're going to fix. And that means that some people are living with potholes that are frankly unacceptable. But until we've got the resource to address that, we are just going to try and manage it as best we can, responding to the most dangerous, to the ones on the most used routes, to the ones on routes to schools, etc., etc. And believe me, as somebody who drives and cycles around the city, I know how dangerous that and how inconvenient that can be. So that's the reality of the situation. We take on board what Councillor Waters is saying about potholes in his ward. Sadly, I've got all ward councillors saying the same thing to me about all of their wards, and we are getting on with it. We fully spend our budget every year. We do all the works that are in there. The team are doing a really good job, but the resources are limited. We have also taken a different approach as an authority, so we are putting in where it's suitable longer lasting repairs. So we're patching larger sections of the road because those repairs will last 15, 20 years, as opposed to a pothole repair, which we think lasts between 3 and 5 years, or 3 and 5 hours, according to Councillor Waters. But pothole repairs are short-term fixes. Long-term repairs take more time and you do less in a year. But over time, it's the only chance we've got of even standing a cat and hell's chance of catching up. Politically, it's not very good for us because, you know, people don't think in 20-year cycles, do they? But, you know, that's what we need to do. So sorry, that went on a bit longer than I expected. But I know it's an issue for people that we need to address, and we are doing all that we can to address it. But quite frankly, we don't have the resources, and as an authority, as we know, going through the budget process, to do all the things that we would like to do. So we have to make some quite hard decisions. Okay. Thank you. Right. I'll shut myself up. I think that was more than 3 minutes. Sorry. I'll move on to agenda item number 5. So this is the Acomb Front Street Phase 2 report. And is it Catherine? Are you going to lead on this? Okay. Catherine Daly, if you'd like to take us through the report.
Yeah, thanks very much. Catherine Daly, Head of City Development. So as the report sets out, back in October 2023, Executive agreed to allocate £570,000 of UK Shared Prosperity Fund funding, which is an external funding source from central government, towards the second phase at Acomb Front Street. And over the past few months, our regeneration team have been working really hard to develop the potential phase 2 elements, which you can see set out in the report, in line with the objectives that are set out at paragraph 31. This work has included working with external urban designers who we've used as a critical friend. We've used as an expert in placemaking, and we've done that alongside ongoing discussions with local ward members, key stakeholders, and that's really a continuation of discussions that came as phase 1 was implemented, and it's due to continue as well. This is a long-term project, a long-term ambition for Acomb Front Street, starting with the 2021 Front Street study, which outlined 10 emerging ideas, which some of the speakers have mentioned this morning. And the majority of those were longer term ideas, but what we've got through the Shared Prosperity Fund monies is a short term opportunity to invest in some of those things that we can deliver in the short term and a bit more quickly. But that doesn't mean that we're not interested in the longer term bold ambitions that the community have. They're very much at the heart of what we're wanting to deliver as well. There is a significant budget, as we've talked about, but obviously it is limited as well, and we do need to consider priorities for spend in phase 2. And there are time constraints on phase 2 due to the nature of the Shared Prosperity Fund deadlines, which is March 22. So what the team have done is essentially, I think one of the speakers called it a shopping list, and I think that's probably a fair description, to be honest, because what we want to do at this stage is take those ideas for the next phase and genuinely engage with as many people as we can locally to see what local priorities are. And this report essentially seeks your approval to undertake that open project engagement on the costed ideas and designs that are set out in the report. And we want to encourage all residents and businesses and visitors, anyone who's got an interest in what happens at Front Street, to get involved. There's a comprehensive programme set out in Annex C, which shows how people can get engaged, and that includes public drop-in sessions, stakeholder meetings, an exhibition at the library, lots of activity on social media, as you'd expect. And we'd also appreciate the help of the groups that have spoken today in terms of raising the opportunities with the people you're working with. We genuinely want to hear what people think. And the idea then would be that we would continue those discussions with the designers and the communities in order to take forward a deliverable phase 2. There's lots of detail in the report. I don't intend to talk through all of it. David's here on behalf of the team to answer any specific questions. I don't know whether you want to add anything at this stage, David.
Thanks, Catherine. My name's David Warburton, Head of Regeneration. I think just a couple of points to perhaps build on what Catherine said. Some of the speakers referenced phase 1 being a highways scheme, and were concerned that phase 2 was equally a highways scheme. I think some of this is perhaps around terminology. Acomb Front Street is a highway, it's a public highway, and that brings with it, a statutory designation, but certain constraints in terms of what we can do. The team has been working, as we've said, with external urban designers. The challenge laid down to us is to try and make this a much better place for people, for the local community, for local businesses, and for visitors. But we have to work within a framework. We can look in a feasibility study at whether further pedestrianisation is possible, further restrictions on access are possible, but that may or may not work well for all of the interested parties, some of the businesses. We believe that the options we're setting out, I say, do give people choices on how the street can be made more people-friendly, but still accommodating, the safe the safe use for all users as well, and making it accessible for all users. And that is the challenge, and that is the balance that we need to strike. I think, as Catherine said, reaching out and collaborating with all unions, certainly, some research with the university about how the process can be made to best fit and to improve and learn lessons from the past. And yeah, the other point I think that was made was around planting. I think putting more planting into Front Street, again, absolutely understand that community aspiration. There are some technical challenges around drainage, around existing services, and around, again, obstructions to the free passage and movement. Acomb, is fortunate in terms of the green and some of the other green spaces, and it's maybe about making those connections and linkages rather than necessarily how many trees we could plant in Front Street itself. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, David. Thank you, Catherine, and thank you for the report, and thank you to the members of the community whose views have contributed greatly to this report. I am happy to recommend, to approve the recommendation, paragraph 18 on page 155. So having got the sort of formal business out of the way, and you've got that recorded decision, I do want to say a few words, as you might have gathered from my previous comments. I think if any word sums up the old Liberal Democrat administration, it's the word bollards. Bollards in Acomb, bollards in town, bollards on the plans, all over the plans for the station gateway. And of course, when you say bollards, it also has other semantic connotations. So I think what we are doing here is trying to clean up a mess. And it's not a great position to be in. not least because of the amount of money that was spent on that previous mess. I honestly thought, and you might have seen me looking a little bit gobsmacked when Councillor Waller was speaking, and it's a pity he's not here to hear the decision. It's really odd to turn up at decision session and put forward all your views and then not wait to see what the decision is, but okay. I honestly thought that he was here to apologise, because make no bones about it, this scheme was introduced by the Liberal Democrat councillors in Westfield. Now, you can call that political point scoring if you like, but it cost this city a lot of money, and we are now having to undo that scheme. Okay, so, and I want that very, very firmly on the record. Now, very happy to take on board all of the other points that Councillor Waller raised about, the access to crossing the road at Morrison's and, the links to Westfield and all that kind of stuff. Very happy to do that. But I think there needs to be some ownership of the problem here. I think we move forward in a relationship with local councillors when they accept, their responsibility in particular areas. And I'm really not hearing any of that. And I'm hearing criticisms of what we're doing, when actually what we're trying to do is, you literally could have made those decisions to do those things that you asked for 9 months ago. Sorry, 11 months. How long have we been in now? 10 months, 11 months ago, 12 months ago. You literally could have made those decisions. I'm very used to Councillor de Gorn turning up at my decision sessions and telling me all the things I should be doing. But obviously he could have done when he was in power. I was quite surprised to hear Councillor Waller playing the same violin. So I think it's not good for our democracy that people take that approach. And as you can tell, I'm a bit annoyed by it. So we just need to get that out there. However, we are trying to clear up this load of bollards mess that's been left by the old Liberal Democrat administration. So the first approach that we took was indeed what Councillor Waller suggested, which was to adopt the path that's in front of the shop. So that a lot of people might not know, but the shop frontage on Front Street in the semi-pedestrianised part of it is actually owned by the people who own the buildings. So we've actually got no right to do anything on those particular areas. So if we did want to have a scheme that fulfills, some of the ambitions that people were dreaming of in the previous consultation, which, it's great to see those ideas out there. And it's great to see that imagination. That would require us pretty much spending all the money, who knows, according to negotiations, but on adopting that piece of public footpath so that it was public footpath that we could do something with. And that was the plan. That's what we thought. Well, that's what we can do, because that's a blank canvas that we can build on with the community and the traders and everybody. What do you want to see here? We consulted with the local community and the ward councillors, and they told us they didn't want that. They didn't really care about us adopting the frontage of the shops. What they wanted to see was some real improvements on the street, and they wanted to see the bollards gone. That's what they told us they wanted to spend the money on. So we changed what we're doing, and we dropped that plan totally, and the team did a 360-degree turn and said, right, okay, this is what the community is telling us. So how do we make that happen? We also, at the same time, still do have to have some protection in there for the pavement that we spent a lot of money putting in. So we're not able at the moment to just rip out all the bollards, which a lot of people want. But actually, talking to people, quite a lot of people also didn't want that to happen. So there are mixed sort of responses to this. So the point that we've got to, through consultation and through this decision session, is that we do have a budget set aside. We do have things next to that budget that can be done to create that space that things can be built on and done in the future to meet the ambitions of the local community. And we can do those works to get it to a point where the community is happy with it. But it's really important that we do that with the community, that it's not done too, as the bollards were. I mean, I was as astonished as anybody else to see them all shooting up all around Front Street. So, that's what this decision today is about. I was quite surprised to hear one of the public participants saying that they don't want any more consultation. I'm really sorry to disappoint that public speaker, but we are going to be going back to more consultation. We're on a really tight schedule for the budget. We have to get spades in the ground and project underway before we lose the money by March next year. So that means we will have to make a decision. That decision will, of course, be consulted with with the local community, and what's in there, a lot has been produced with voices from the community. But I want to be really clear about this. This is a start. what we're trying to do is create that sort of area that you can then build on and move into. Now, David talked briefly about, you know, there is a desire for a lot of people to have the whole thing pedestrianised with pop-up parks and, you know, places that you can do stuff in. And I share that desire, but there are a number of stakeholders involved that you have to consider. And actually the process of taking a public highway from not being a public highway anymore is quite a complicated process to go through and takes a lot of time. And we definitely wouldn't have gone through that process in time to get this money spent before we lose it in March next year. So, you know, we need to explore that for sure. But, you know, there may well be traders on the shop who turn around and say to you, well, that's going to put us out of business if you do that, because we won't be able to get stuff to our shop. Or there may not, you know, or there may be other ways of delivering to it, or there may not. But that's quite a bigger decision to take, I think. And but it's certainly not one that we're afraid of, because we're all up for being bold and imaginative. But what we need to do now is get something going with the money that we've got before we lose it, to budget against headlines that we can actually procure people to do the work and get it done. So Councillor Waller did not apologise to the people of Acomb for imposing a forest of bollards on their main front street. I'm very happy to do so. I'm glad that we are putting things right, and I want to thank the team in particular, because I think there's been a few meetings where, you know, passions run high. I mean, I don't hear criticism. I hear enthusiasm when people are critical of it, because they care about something, you know, and that's because we need to do, and the team has taken that on board and adapted brilliantly to get us to a position where we can move forward. I think still a lot more work to do, still a lot more cooperation we need to do and co-production we need to do with the local community, but we just need to get this budget allocated so that we can start undoing the mess that we've been left. So there endeth the rant. I think so hopefully we won't be repeating the mistakes of previous administrations, and I'm hoping that I've covered all of the points that the public speakers raised. So thank you all for coming and making those points. And yes, I'm happy to approve the recommendation that we move it on to the next phase, as in paragraph 18. Okay, that ends that agenda item. And I don't think there is any urgent business that's been raised with us. No urgent business today. So I call this meeting closed, and thank you all very much.